After evading reporters' questions, at 2 o'clock in the morning of 1964, 17-year-old Randy finally got to close his eyes. He had gone 11 consecutive days without sleep. Initially, he only hoped to make a splash at the 10th Greater San Diego Science Fair by challenging the then 260-hour sleepless record. However, this experiment caught the attention of local journalists and even drew William Dement, a pioneering sleep researcher from Stanford University. Dement drove to San Diego and monitored Randy's health alongside Navy Medical Officer Ross. By the third day, Randy's senses began to betray him. He could no longer distinguish objects by touch. Soon after, the dam of his memory began to crumble, and his cognitive abilities declined sharply. Later, the line between reality blurred completely, and he started hallucinating. He saw walls breathing and heard non-existent sounds. To help Randy stay awake, Dement played basketball and marbles with him. Interestingly, even on the 10th day, Randy still won every game on the marble table. But on the 11th day, when asked to count down from 100 by subtracting 7 each time, he suddenly stopped at 65. When he came to his senses, he had completely forgotten what he was doing. The usually mild teenager also became irritable and lost his temper with reporters. After 264 hours, Randy was sent to a Navy hospital. Monitored by an electroencephalograph EEG, he fell into a deep sleep and slept for 14 hours straight. Subsequent examinations found no abnormalities. However, Randy's record was broken the same year, and the documented limit has now reached nearly 19 days. In the end, though, no one can break the fundamental rule that humans must sleep. Later, these sleep deprivation experiments were no longer recognized by Guinness due to their extreme danger. But humanity's exploration of this mysterious realm had only just begun. 10 years earlier, in the basement of the University of Chicago, 30-year-old graduate student Eugene Sirinsky stared at the slowly unspooling EEG tape. He attached electrodes to his 8-year-old son Armand's scalp and around his eyes, trying to record brain waves during sleep. After midnight, the recording pen suddenly began to oscillate violently. Sirinsky thought the equipment was malfunctioning, but when he approached, he saw his son was still fast asleep. He gently lifted the child's eyelid and discovered his eyes were moving rapidly, as if he were looking around while awake. Thus, REM rapid eye movement sleep was discovered. This proved that sleep is not a shutdown of the brain during this phase. The brain is just as active as when awake, filled with wild dreams. But why was this obvious phenomenon not made public until 1953? Sirinsky's mentor, Nathaniel Kleitman, was somewhat embarrassed to admit that they had never conducted continuous overnight recordings before. To save expensive recording paper, they had only recorded for a few minutes every 2-3 hours during the first hour of sleep. However, REM sleep only arrives about 90 minutes after falling asleep, though it occurs cyclically 4 to 5 times each night. Each episode lasts only 20 to 30 minutes. Therefore, what previous researchers had recorded was the relatively calm drowsiness, light sleep, and slow-wave sleep that precede REM. After this discovery shattered the perception that sleep is a quiet state. A new question emerged: if the brain is so active during dreams, why don't we actually jump out of bed? French scientist Michael Jouvet found the answer in cats. After damaging the pontine tegmentum, region in the cat's brainstem that controls muscle tone, these cats would suddenly stand up during REM sleep. They would chase invisible prey, adopt offensive and defensive postures, as if hunting in their dreams. This means that, every night, our brains issue commands in the virtual world of dreams. But to protect us, it thoughtfully cuts off the body's execution switch. While scientists were captivated by the wonders of REM sleep, the seemingly unremarkable slow-wave sleep also came into the spotlight in the early 21st century. In 2007, German scientist Jan Born had subjects learn word pairs while smelling rose fragrance. That night, when they entered slow-wave sleep, he quietly released the same scent again. The result was that these subjects who slept with the fragrance had far better memory performance the next day than others. Brain imaging also showed that the familiar scent triggered the hippocampus, prompting it to replay the day's learning content during sleep, forging fragile short-term memories into stable long-term ones. Then, in 2013, Macon Nadergaard from the University of Rochester discovered another function of slow-wave sleep: brain cleansing. When mice enter slow-wave sleep, their brain cells shrink, expanding the gaps between cells by about 60%. Cerebrospinal fluid then surges into these gaps like a tide, flushing away metabolic waste accumulated during the day, including beta-amyloid protein, which is linked to dementia. This cleaning mechanism, known as the glymphatic system, explains why we feel groggy when sleep deprived. In addition, slow-wave sleep is responsible for brain optimization. In 2017, a team led by Italian neuroscientists Giulio Tononi and Chiara Cirelli spent 4 years reconstructing and measuring thousands of synapses. They found that after just a few hours of sleep, the volume of synapses in the mouse cerebral cortex shrank by an average of about 18, validating the synaptic homeostasis hypothesis they proposed in 2003. During daytime learning and experiences, the synapses in our brains continuously strengthen and multiply. Without regulation, this would deplete the brain's energy and space. Sleep's role is to globally weaken and prune all synapses in equal proportions without impairing memory storage, making room for new information the next day. As observations of dreams deepened, the idea of interacting with dreams themselves took center stage. In 2013, a team led by Japanese scientist Makoto Uehie pioneered dream reading. They had volunteers sleep in an MRI scanner, repeatedly woken them to ask about their dream content, and used machine learning algorithms to analyze activity patterns in the brain's visual cortex. The computer learned to identify categories of objects in dreams, such as people and buildings. Though they couldn't reconstruct complete dream seeds, dreams began to be objectively seen. In 2014, Benjamin B.N. Voss and others broke into the world of dreams using electricity. They found that when applying low gamma-wave alternating current during REM sleep, more than half of the subjects entered a lucid dreaming state, suddenly gaining self-awareness in their dreams, realizing they were dreaming, and being able to control the direction of their dreams to a limited extent, just like in Inception. The latest breakthrough has gone even further. In 2021, scientists achieved real-time communication with lucid dreamers. Researchers posed simple math questions, for example, what is 8 minus 6? To people in dreams using sounds or lights, and the dreamers answered via PI-agreed eye movement patterns. Among 36 subjects, there were 29 successful communications, though the overall accuracy rate was not high. Dreams are no longer private monologues, they are beginning to become a conversational experience. We once saw sleep as a pause in life and dreams as inorganic phantoms. Now, we know that this dark realm, which occupies 1/3 of our lives, is not empty. Perhaps we must abandon consciousness, dissolve the self, and sink into the chaotic darkness every day so that we can reassemble into a fully functional, clear-minded self the next morning.